Yo.
Hey.
Yeah, someone told me to come in here and talk to you about Madden.
Yeah, I guess we have to be the football guys, huh?
Yeah, Sportos.
You can have that, by the way, if you'd like
Look
it.
at this. League champion. Wow, you're pretty good at football. You're pretty damn talented. Should go right here, actually, on your desk. So, Madden.
Yeah.
07. From EA Sports. It's in the game. What'd you think of this year's game?
Dude, you know what? I totally thought this year was going to be the year that they got it right, and then I guess that's why I was more disappointed than regular, you know? So this year, full time to work on it, time to build in more of the single player game. I'm thinking, yeah, this should be an awesome football game. And not so much.
I actually like the lead blocker controls. I know you're not a big fan of it. For me, I thought of oh, what's the big deal? Taking care of a lead blocker, that's boring. But the one thing in that, it's always been a problem, is trying to get outside runs, get big plays, and if you actually take control of your lead blocker, and you'll actually catch the linebacker or the cornerback coming in. You can knock them, press B, you'll switch right back, or whatever version you're playing, and you can just keep on going for a long run.
Busting out into the open field. The 40, the 30, the 20, the 10.
Hey, get him rock. 48, 55, 48. Pushing back. Hey, D-line, touch 3.
They go with the pitch to the right.
I'm coming.
Shakes the tackle.
Alert, 45. Watch the hard count. Big stuff, dude, big stuff. Let's go.
They go with the toss to the left.
I mean,
I don't dislike, don't pay me in a corner. I don't dislike lead blocking. Actually, I think lead blocking is really cool. My argument is you shouldn't have to do it to make the blocking work.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I took them to task for, is that the game's gotten to be like a hardcore simulation of football, but if you let the AI control it, the blocking is still broken.
What's funny is that every year they're putting in more features that make it less accessible.
Yeah.
Vision precision passing, yeah, that worked. Yeah, it's hidden now in the features. They don't want you even to use it. I like lead blocker. I think it works. I like to see it taken next year. But the biggest BS thing is the highlight stick. Oh, your running backs now run more scat backs, more run fast and stuff like that, and their moves. I'm like, you basically just renamed your freaking juke button. I mean, that's all you did. You didn't come up with this cool new innovative thing. Hello marketing. Hello, we decided to come up with something new.
It didn't feel that much different to me.
No,
they run exactly the same.
Yeah, really.
There's no difference when you hit the sticks. Same moves, same feel,
I know we're
same
kind of being
everything.
hard on, but it did overall play still pretty well. I mean, it did.
Oh, yeah.
It played well. I mean, I thought they gotten some things better. So I have to say, I was one of the guys from months saying, oh, they have to put Superstar mode in. But man, was I dead effing wrong. That mode is atrocious.
Yeah, they're cameras you never play with. So now all of a sudden you're trying to play this guy, right? Even if it's quarterback, and you're like, I've never played. I can't do this.
When I'm playing quarterback in real life, I can literally see my men down the field. I can't see. You have no perception, depth perception whatsoever. I mean, basically, it's it's something put in the back. It ended up being something in the back of the box. And I appreciate they tried to put it in there, but it's absolutely atrocious. At least if I'm going to do a superstar mode with quarterback or something, give me the option to give it back to the camera.
The camera thing is so easy to fix. I mean, they've got to accept it's the same thing. You called it first-person football. Remember first-person football? We were talking about 2K, and it doesn't work because when you're playing and looking at a screen, you don't have peripheral vision, and screens don't have peripheral vision, so it doesn't work.
No, it's one thing just that it's having a feature and having a feature that works. People always say, it's beefier than last year. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's better.
So we're beefing on them, but the feature they have that does work is multiplayer, and that's where most people will play this game, and everyone will still love that because that's the equalizer.
And online ran really well when we were playing it. I thought it ran better than it did last year.
Yeah, I know. I hope that's not an anomaly. I mean, I hope that when they have the real retail servers up and everyone's playing it, that it doesn't get boggy.
Well, you notice they're gonna have downloadable content this year, right?
Yeah.
So alternate uniforms, historic stadiums, and if if I can remember, weren't we getting that stuff for basically for free for years?
You don't even pull that memory stuff. I know. It's for free.
They're gonna charge you a couple bucks for freaking downloading the Browns' 5th uniform, or which is absolutely, I'm sorry, absolutely ridiculous. The fact that they make more money than anybody on that game, and to reward Madden fans, and if they actually are gonna charge people money for that stuff, that's absolutely atrocious. And if Madden fans buy into it, I will really be sick. I mean, you're already spending $10 more for the 360 version. Now you're telling me, basically, for a color palette swap, I gotta pay money. Multiplayer maps are one thing because it changes actually the way you play the game. The map changes, the terrain changes. I put on a different uniform, I don't get a bonus.
Let's not kill them before we know.
Yeah,
Maybe it won't be charged for. I mean, you're like you said, just a color swap. Because I know I'll be beefed. I'm a Cowboys fan. I want my superstar jerseys. I want the superstar jerseys.
Madden fans do not buy that crap. If they charge, do not buy it. Do not let them do that. It's absolutely ridiculous because they'll keep doing it for other games in other years, and that's ridiculous. I'm sorry, I just refuse to pay for a color palette swap. I don't. It's ridiculous. And if you pay for it, then you're ridiculous. You're just as bad as they are.
No argument there. Totally agree. I played a game with 7-minute quarters, right? So to kind of get the score, that seems to be the sweet spot, right? I had 14 turnovers in the game. It was fumbles. It was fumbled kick returns. It was interceptions. It was interceptions to fumbles to more fumbles. They've got to get that under. It's the same problem they have in NCAA. It's like they have to have this big dramatic game. It's like every game has to have every combination of stuff that can happen in it, and it's not real.
It's just, nitpicky things now I'm noting, like I can talk about. Like the players, like in terms of proportions, aren't as accurate as they used to be. Like Charlie Fry and the Browns look like he's been working out for like 50 years on his arms because he's got gigantic arms. I feel like Madden, in the long scheme of things, just isn't as detailed as it used to be. But I don't really care that much. But you're in a scheme of things, it doesn't bother me as much. But just don't buy those freaking downloads. Don't do it. That's all I gotta say.
Don't buy the content.
Don't do it. If they charge, don't buy it. Don't be a sucker. All right. Otherwise, I gotta go back to my desk and actually do work.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, so it just seems like every 5 years Nintendo would say, it's summertime, let's do something big. So there was, let's see, the 25th anniversary of Donkey Kong is a summer.
Right.
20th anniversary of Metroid, 15th anniversary of the Super NES, and there's probably some other stuff that I'm forgetting. Oh, Castlevania, which wasn't actually Nintendo, but pretty close. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff. But right now we'd like to talk about the Super NES and its 15th anniversary, and as it happens, Ray Barnholt wrote our excellent feature retrospective on the Super NES.
As it happens.
As it happens. It's a complete coincidence
total happenstance.
that we just happened to invite him to this
Oh my
session.
God, yeah. And I'm dressed for the occasion with my silly Nintendo shirt, yeah.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yes.
I can't read that crazy squiggle language, so I'm glad you said that.
Is that shorthand?
No.
Yes.
God.
So Ray, tell us about the Super NES.
Yeah, what about?
Yeah.
According to your
that?
feature, actually, the intro said that the Super NES was, until the PlayStation 2, the most anticipated game system in the world.
I would definitely say so, yes.
Why is that?
Just because Nintendo had built so much from the original NES and the Famicom in Japan and America and in some respects Europe. And that just blew up and just basically revitalized the game industry, that everybody was just so hot for Nintendo that once they finally announced that they were making a successor, it was just, that was it. Everybody had to have it no matter what.
Okay, but actually, as a matter of fact, not everyone had to have it, because for the first few years of its life, at least in America, the Genesis pretty much walked all over it. Yeah. Sega kind of trounced Nintendo for a while there.
Yeah. Well, I still had to have it because, I was like 8 or 9 at the time. So, and although I did want a Genesis, I was still pretty much allied with Nintendo, I guess, to put it in a fanboyish way.
Well, actually, I think that's pretty appropriate, because the 16-bit era was probably, until, the next generation that we have coming up, probably the most heated sort of competition between any two systems.
Yeah.
I mean, the Nintendo and Sega were very neck and neck for a while.
Because when the Super Nintendo came out, that was for a lot of people the first real generational transition, where they realized that a video game system was not something that you have forever, and that eventually you do have to get rid of your old game system and buy a new one. And a lot of parents were really at odds with that because they felt that Nintendo was ripping them off. A lot of the reason why I think we saw a bigger leap, say, between Super Nintendo and PlayStation and N64 is because, well, some of that is because Nintendo actually specifically wanted to keep 3D games off of Super Nintendo so they could create the appearance of a bigger gulf between those two systems, though, too.
Do you have proof for that, or is that a wacky conspiracy theory?
They canceled. No. This is Dylan Cuthbert, who did Star Fox 2,
right.
They canceled it.
So
okay,
right.
Remember when
Looking
you
at the
first
later
saw
Super
Star
NES
Fox?
stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I
Cancel
mean,
Star Fox 2.
Yep,
yeah,
they
they
did.
canceled Star Fox 2.
They stopped using the Super FX2 chip in any
Right.
with any 3D capacity. They used Yoshi's Island 2, but only
Right,
to do
but that was
2D
for
graphics,
scaling.
of sprites. Yep.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways,
We lied.
the most interesting stuff that happened on the Super NES mostly happened right at the beginning. I mean, you had these really, really fantastic games. Like, the belief now is that first-generation games on a new console always suck. But that was not the case with the Super NES. You had Super Mario World, which, you know, it was pretty much Super Mario Brothers 3, but at the same time, it did all these little things that just added so much detail.
A lot of
to
the
the
early
game.
games were just like deliberately showcasing.
Yeah,
you play like
Castlevania 4.
Castlevania 4. I was going to
With
say
this,
it's like a
world
fun
level
house full of
4,
look what we can do
right.
in mode 7. Yeah.
But you also had stuff like ActRaiser, you had Soul Blazer, you had help me out here. What else? Final Fantasy 2.
You had Final
I like
Fight,
Pilot
which
Wings.
some people say would suck on the Super Nintendo, but I loved that game.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
I
just
played
in
that
the
for like
first 6
12 hours
months, there
straight.
was
Yeah.
an amazing amount of really, really progressive software, and then after that, it just kind of fell into a rut. And you had stuff, you know, that would come along occasionally, like Star Fox or Donkey
Right.
Kong Country.
I think what really clinched it for me, I never really owned any of these damn things. My parents were dirt poor, so I just cultivated middle-class friends. But what finally really settled me on the damn thing was I think when I saw Chrono Trigger, and most of that was due to the sound chip. Actually, I loved the music in the damn thing. Up to that point, I was all about a Genesis, and that was just incredible.
But yeah, there were a lot of really, really good games on Super NES, despite the fact that, you know, they weren't necessarily as innovative. It was a period of refinement, and so a lot of the games maybe not have had as much creativity as you saw on the NES or on the PlayStation after it. But what they did exceptionally well, and I think a lot of the games hold up really well as a result of that.
Definitely.
Which segues into our next section, which is to discuss Metroid. But Nadia here did a fine job of basically summing up the entire series with her One Girl Against the Galaxy feature that went up recently.
Way to go.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
Nadia, why don't you tell us a bit about that? It was a look at the series through the heroine, and it was more about
Yeah.
Samus Aran than it was, or Samus Aran, or however you pronounce it, than
I
it was about the
gonna
game.
say Samus.
Samus, okay.
I just basically Samus I find is a really interesting character. She doesn't really have much to say for herself, and I think I mentioned in my feature about how some people were kind of disappointed with Metroid Fusion because all of a sudden she was talking and she wouldn't shut up. And
Her
Nice.
computer wouldn't shut up.
the computer wouldn't shut up either.
Well, she also
Yeah.
had her little emo soliloquies when
Emo
she was
moments.
riding the elevator.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
totally. Time to think.
I
Time
named
to
him
think.
Adam with some irony.
No, but before Metroid Fusion, she just what was interesting about her is that she had one of the most emotional moments in a video game, and that was near the end of Super Metroid, when the baby Metroid kind of came in and owned Mother Brain.
Right.
And this isn't just my opinion. I mean, I've gone around and I've talked to people, fans of the series, saying, what moment do you really recall best? And it's definitely a heavy vote towards that particular moment.
Right. I think that stands as one of the best moments in games, just in terms of relaying a story through gameplay. There's no
It is
dialogue.
utterly
There's no
free of-
script. It's
Yes.
just a part of the game. It's integrated into the actual gameplay. But
Exactly.
it stands out so powerfully.
Right.
Exactly.
I think that's part
And
of where
it's-
the offensiveness of Fusion came in, is people expected something more along the lines of that sequence in in the sequel,
Yeah.
and then they got like endless jabber jawing whenever you
This
stop.
is why I'm locking all the doors.
Jibba jabba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it was my husband who brought up an interesting point, is that Mother Brain in Metroid 4 isn't very hard to defeat. And yet that kind of adds to the experience, like, because you're not really sweating the whole battle. Well, you are when obviously you're meant to lose. And of course, after the moment occurs, basically Samus kind of god modes and just totally rips apart Mother Brain. It was just a really well sequenced, really well done
I
sequence.
think a lot of it was the 1-2 of, oh God, that sucks. Hey, I'm an ass-kicking machine.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I think empowerment is a lot of what makes Metroid so appealing. The real thrust of the game is to turn Samus into this walking tank of destruction. She starts out kind of like kitten weak at the beginning, but
The excuses
by the
for
end
that
of
are
it,
getting more and more contrived with these.
they are getting more and more contrived.
They are.
But so far we
Dear.
haven't reached the point of complete stupidity yet. But at the end
get
of
there.
Zero Mission, I think a lot of people have a problem with the stealth section of Zero Mission, but it really
I
kind of
liked it.
it encapsulates that finale of
I
Super
enjoyed
Metroid
it.
because you spend a little while powerless and running for your life, and then you fight your duplicate and get your powered up suit, and all of a sudden you can just tear through anything with no
Yes.
effort.
Yeah.
And it's a very satisfying feeling. And
Very satisfying.
the Metroid experience is that same sensation, but stretched out over, like 2-3 hours, because you're
Yes.
gradually acquiring these power-ups, and before you realize it, you've got the screw attack, you've got super missiles, you've got, all kinds of other crap that you can just tear through the things that were giving you trouble before. And that's a big part of what makes Metroid so satisfying, at least for me.
Exactly.
Definitely.
That's probably actually why that was a better part in Zero Mission, is because it encapsulated that entire thing really quickly, kind of put it in perspective.
Right. And the fact that it's a female character who is experiencing this makes the series sort of unique, because female empowerment is not really a common motif in video games, I've noticed.
What?
Well, you might
Really?
beg to differ, but
Can we talk about the importance in Metroid of fleeing?
fleeing.
I
Yes,
think
please
that's
do.
really interesting, actually. Like,
How often do you flee in Metroid? I mean, outside of Fusion.
No, like in Fusion, whenever you see your other.
I mean, when
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
when
Like
there's
the
not a
escape
digital
sequences.
clock on the screen.
And that awesome opening to Super Metroid, one of the most cinematic openings ever, where the
Oh, you mean where you run away when something's exploding, basically?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about every Metroid game ends with one of
Yeah.
those.
yeah.
That one actually began with one of those, though.
Yeah, that one actually began
right.
with it, and it was like just one of the most heart-stopping ways to begin a
Yes.
video game ever. And I mean, even when you've got plenty of time, like there's that drop of sweat.
Well, I think it's where
crawling
it's
down
such
your-
contrast to the slow, quiet, lonely
Right, it's-
lead-in, and then
Exactly.
instantly going to that.
Right.
Yeah.
But then it goes quiet again, and it almost makes it creepier when you go on
Yeah.
to the planet that before was crawling with monsters, and all of a sudden it's empty and deserted.
Right.
And you
Yeah,
kind
and
of
a lot of
feel like
jarring
someone's
changes in
watching
tempo
The rain
there.
and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's just another example of why Super Metroid was so effective in storytelling, despite its utter minimalism. I
Right.
think.
Well, it's kind of like been like that from the beginning, though. I mean, they always start with a kind of a triumphant ass-kicking theme, and as you go deeper and deeper, it becomes a lot more ambient.
Oh
and-
yeah.
Another thing to really consider about Super Metroid that makes it so awesome is that you're facing off against Ridley. Like, it was like the last boss in the original Metroid, okay,
Right.
right before Mother Brain, but then, holy crap, here he is. All of a sudden, you're not exactly powered up.
We're gonna do this
That
in the very
was
beginning when
that was
you're-
before
yeah.
Ridley became a cliche, right?
It was an interesting twist.
Yeah, although the Metroid series has had its ups and downs, once upon a time I could easily say that Metroid was my favorite series, bar none. But at this point, there are actually more games in the series that I'm kind of ambivalent about than
More than
games that
three.
I deeply love, basically.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I enjoy the Prime games for what they are, but at the same time, I can't play for more than about 8 hours before I'm like, I'm sick of all this backtracking. I'm constantly
Well, if you
just
can't
going
play
back
for
and
8
Do
forth.
you
hours,
play
that's-
for 8
that's
hours at a
crap, huh?
time usually?
That'll do it to you.
No, I mean like 8 hours into the game, then
Even the
8
first
hours on
one?
my clock.
I can
and I'm,
totally
like,
understand that with
tired
the
of it.
second one, but I don't know about the first one.
I don't know. The first one, I just kind of got tired of it. 3D
Wow.
backtracking makes me tired.
Once you got into that artifact,
And you know,
then I can see that.
I actually, it was the artifact.
That's when I
stuff.
stopped.
I was talking about this earlier. That was the thing that really killed me about the second one. Is I remember in interviews they were actually acknowledging, that backtracking for a dozen doodads was kind of retarded. And then Prime 2 comes along. It's like, oh great, we get to do that again. Oh, but this time it's only 9, so that's okay.
I don't know. I just don't think that kind of backtracking necessarily works well in 3D unless it's really, really.
Well, it's more time consuming to move through 3D space.
And it's weird because I totally blew through Wind Waker without getting bored of anything, and everyone hates that.
Yeah, I never had a problem with Wind Waker getting bored.
But Prime, I don't know. Maybe it's the first-person perspective that's more intense or something.
I gave up on Prime 2, I would say probably after about 8 hours, just because I kind of got bored of it. But Prime 1, I stopped at the artifact hunt. But I eventually went back and beat it because I wanted to. But it was like, it did get a little. I guess that's the Metroid dilemma of putting Metroid into 3D. That. You need backtracking because that's what Metroid's about.
Well, I think
backtracking in 3D is just hard.
What most makes the thing appealing is that you're looking for doodads, you're looking for things that empower you, but they actually do something.
Yeah,
and those
you get to the artifacts and they're not doing
artifacts are a collectathon.
But on top of that, Super Metroid especially did a really good job with creating this huge world that initially was very difficult to get through, but once you got to certain points, there were lots and lots of shortcuts and connections. Like you could bomb the glass tube and it would shatter, and all of a sudden you had a shortcut from Meridia back to to Brinstar.
But that didn't really happen in Prime.
No, Prime was more spread out.
Yeah, they did. Right. They tried. They gave it the old college try and put a lot of little elevators to.
Oh yeah, well it was
things, but
just as a 3D interpretation of Metroid, it was so much better than anyone on the planet expected.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that I really was excited to bring up on the message boards, and I've really been impressed with the kids' responses to that, because it's so
I hate
elegant.
it when you call them that,
Like what? The kids? Kids.
The squirts.
But no, it's just so elegant, because I think for everyone who's a fan of two-dimensional Metroid, that was like a very real concern.
Yeah.
Was how it would translate.
Right. We were freaking out because
I appreciate the fact that Retro took the time to look at 3D games that did not work and say, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that they it's like it's going to be a first-person shooter, and everybody thought it was going to be like a Quake mod with a Metroid skin on it, which, as it turns out, is pretty much what Metroid Prime Hunters is. Like when people were worried about Metroid Prime, they were worried that it would be like Metroid Prime Hunters. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I'm kind of curious about your perspective on Metroid, Chris.
Really?
Seeing as you did not actually
coincidence,
seeing as you did not actually play a Metroid game until Metroid Prime or Fusion, right when the 2 came out.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I like it.
No, so when I was in Japan, Metroid Prime and Fusion came out in the US first, and so I wanted to get my hands on those because of just all the hype surrounding them, but I had not gotten into a Metroid game before those, and Jen is looking at me with her arms crossed right now.
My arms have been crossed.
Like she's ready to punch me in the face. Well, I played Metroid 1 on the NES a little bit, but like I just never got into it. It was, as you said, it was like it starts off just brutally difficult, and I just I really couldn't get anywhere. I wasn't that good of a video game player as a child. My friend had Metroid 2. And I messed around with that, but I didn't really like that either.
I can't imagine why not.
Right, and so I don't like Metroid 1, I don't like Metroid 2. Super Metroid came out on the Super NES, and I'm like, you know what? I'm probably not going to like that because I don't like the other two. How wrong was I? I played a bit of Prime, but then I found myself just totally drawn into Fusion. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And then people online are saying like, well, Fusion isn't as good as Super Metroid. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. There's a game that's just like this, awesome game.
But better?
Better. Yeah. So I literally, I went out, the next day after I beat Fusion and bought Super Metroid and brought it back home and beat it in maybe a day or two. Just blazed right through it and was blown away.
Right.
And so now I would call myself a Metroid fan, even though since then I've only really liked Zero Mission, because Prime 2 was really, really good, but I didn't beat it, and Hunters sucks.
And pinball doesn't really count.
Pinball
is awesome.
Pinball is fun.
Pinball rules.
It doesn't really advance the Metroid canon.
No, it does not.
Yes, it does.
So there was this mission where Samus was stuck as a morph ball and had to jump through cosmic tables.
It's upsetting.
But it's still more fun than Metroid 2.
Huh.
I want you to tell me why Metroid 2 is good, because I don't believe you.
Yeah, I'm interested in this.
I'm glad we're all friends here, so I can be like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Jen. I used it against you.
The context here is that Jin's first action on the oneup.com website was to find my retro review of Metroid 2, in which I think I gave it like a 3 out of 10 because it really sucks.
And then my righteous indignation
she was
took
very
over.
indignant. And that was how I met Jin.
I love Metroid 2. And I've been playing it all day today, and I can tell you that I don't just love it out of nostalgia, as you have accused me of doing.
So why? Okay, let me tell you why I think that Metroid 2 is bad.
Shoot it to me.
I think Metroid 2 is a poor game because other Metroids, the progress you make through the game is based around Samus's advancement. It's her abilities as they expand. She can reach new places. In Metroid 2.
It's arbitrary.
It's very arbitrary.
It's based on lava.
You shoot Metroids, and somehow killing a monster makes the lava say, "Oh God, it's time to drain out." And suddenly you can go to a new area.
I mean, don't.
In essence, that's no different than like collecting the red key for the red door or whatever.
Except it's just not. It's not. It's not suited to Metroid.
I'm just not as angry about the appearance of a scripted event as you are, apparently.
Oh, I see. So you think it's my deep-seated issue with event flags?
Yes.
I see.
Or lava.
Event flags killed his parents. It's not fucking
Damn
funny.
lava. No, I mean, I remember the first time I played it, and I'll stop saying that sentence, but the first time I played it, I didn't know that the whole earth was supposed to tremble at that moment. And I know that I was horrified, and I was, what's happening?
You didn't connect that with the fact that you killed an arbitrary number of whatever the hell's?
My younger version hears you across time and weeps off. And I don't have a problem with that. Like, I think that the other games are certainly more elegant in the way that you are able to pass from, we'll tentatively say level to level, although none of them are really linear
area
exactly.
To area.
Right, area to area.
Well, that's a big part of the appeal of the thing is you're presented with an obstacle, you find a way of getting around that obstacle, but it's useful elsewhere. You know, it's
right.
not
you
just
can't
some
use
arbitrary...
an earthquake someplace else in Metroid.
I'm just saying, I understand why you would say
on
that the other games are more elegant in the way that they circumvent that.
On top of that, I just think it's, I have a problem with the game physics. It's just kind of floaty compared to the other games in the series. Like, the way she jumps is just, it's floaty.
I love it.
Oh.
I love it.
Plus, she's really big on the screen, so you have a jump where you're jumping actually higher than the height of the screen.
Yeah.
So you have no idea what's above there.
It's like the only Metroid game with leaps of faith.
No, the screen, I love it. It's like you're jumping in order to investigate because there's that screen slide.
It's fun to investigate when you don't
when you're
run
not
the risk
banging
of
your head on something you can't
smacking
see.
into your head, even though you couldn't see it before.
I don't know. I don't seem to have that problem. I guess I'm just better at Metroid 2 than you are.
I guess. Yeah. That's what rote memorization will do for you.
You have like a spidey sense for shit that's off your Game Boy?
No, Jen, I think it's...
Is there anything about Metroid 2 that you don't like?
Is there? I think that Jeremy is able to hit upon things that I agree are certainly inelegant, but I would never use the word inelegant to describe Metroid 2. I think it's very...
I think also the world design is very inelegant.
Elegant game is what I think it is. I think
it was really, really good for the limitations of the Game Boy. I think what they were trying to do was create a game that was actually more than the Game Boy could handle.
Yeah.
And basically what it does is it served as a testing ground for a lot of ideas that were realized to perfection in Super Metroid.
Absolutely, and I absolutely agree with that.
And I can appreciate it in that sense.
The Samus sprite that we've kind of all approved of.
Yes. That was when I was first defined, but that was also like one of the worst parts of the damn game was that she was massive.
Too big.
She
was like half the screen high.
I like that though. Yeah. That was one of the things that I kind of liked about it is because it was so technically cool that she was just that big on screen in the Game Boy. Once I figured out that I was a Metroid fan, I went back and I completed Metroid 2 on the game. I actually
doing better than I am.
Absolutely.
I can't hit myself.
But I still cannot to this day get more than 5 minutes into Metroid 1 without stopping. And I've tried every time we re-release it, I give it a shot. Yeah. Like on Prime, I gave it a shot. I'm like, nope.
Well, if you give a crap about the story of the Metroid series, it is good to play Metroid 2 because that's where like it actually started to tell a story.
Right.
It has all the multiple forms of the Metroids, which I really like, and having the Omega Metroid as the final boss of Metroid Fusion.
Of course, that whole story is pretty much alien.
Yeah.
One complaint that I've always heard about Metroid 2 is the repetition of backgrounds, which I think Nadia had the audacity to refer to as cabbage.
Cabbage-like.
It is cabbage.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking
my
about.
God. No, but I actually strike me down if I'm wrong, you guys.
I will.
No, I know. But I liked the repetition because while it's true that it's disorienting, I feel
I couldn't get anywhere because everything looked like
the German Unheimlich, I remember, is the word that I whipped out in my response piece to your review, which literally translates to the uncanny, but in the way German words, are, it means so much more. In this case, like a sense of dread that comes from a deja vu, or it's uncanny because I've been here before.
So
Do you think that's what Metroid Dread is going to be about?
Is there a Metroid Dread?
We shouldn't even get into
Segue
that.
over there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, who knows if there will ever actually be another Metroid main game if it's just like the Prime series now. I'm sure Sakamoto is off working someplace.
Metroid Conga.
Trying to top Dawn of Sorrow.
Yeah.
Metroid Curiosity.
But yeah, Nintendo is very quiet.
Paper Metroid.
Paper Metroid.
That could save the whole thing.
Wow.
Paper Mario might be Paper Metroid.
I like
Oh,
it.
yeah,
if
sure.
it's non-linear.
Well, now we're getting off into your little Metroidvania fetish.
No,
so.
we're not even going to bring that in here.
Okay.
Actually, I think this is a good stopping point for us because it's about to get really silly.
Yeah, we're about to start punching each other in the face.
No, Nadia, thanks for taking the time to be talked over.
Oh, no problem.
We appreciate you showing up. Thanks everyone else for coming in.
Yes, indeed.
And that wraps it up for the Retronauts beta. Next time, if there is a next time, we'll be talking about
Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong, because Chris wrote a great retrospective on that.
Way to go, Chris.
And
Thank
also Final Fantasy III, as in the Famicom game.
Wow.
Which will be coming out on DS.
Yeah.
So if you're out there listening and actually don't hate all of us and would like to participate, get yourself a Skype account and let me know your account name and bone up on these particular subjects, and I might be able to include one or two of you in here. We'll make it a community thing.
Community.
But that is
Scream
all
real
for
loud.
now. Thanks everyone for listening and or watching, and we'll catch you next time, probably.